All right. Buddy Hale, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, thanks for reaching out.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to start off talking about how you've been staying busy during this COVID time, and more importantly, how you've been creative during this time. You kind of mentioned it before we started rolling about just kind of how you were thinking about your creative time and your creative space right now.
Yeah, for sure. Those answers, I think, kind of smash into each other pretty well, right? Staying busy through creative endeavors, right? Not 100% though. You know, it's like there's a lot of administrative things that are like piled up for sure. But yeah, really trying, I think, like a lot of other people that are in the creative space, to kind of flex that muscle, maybe in a way that's a little bit different than pre-COVID. For me, that sort of looked like re-engaging with my first instrument, which is drums.
Nice.
In a new sort of way, right? So, lifelong drummer, first instrument, had a real long pause from drums for various reasons. And when COVID hit, I reconnected with them sort of unintentionally. MusicLandria got a grant to do some video programming, right? We applied for a creative economy grant through the Office of Arts and Culture here in Sacramento, and was chatting with a kid from the Met High School who reached out to us to be a mentee, right? And we chatted for a couple weeks, and we're like, okay, what kind of project can we put together that would be impactful in your life? What are you stoked on? What do you want to do? The answers were YouTube, like producing.
How old is he?
Like 15.
Yeah, YouTube is huge.
A lot of kids want to be YouTubers.
I mean, I use YouTube all the time myself.
Yep, no doubt.
But I think even teenagers, it's huge.
Right. Yeah, it's a thing.
Does he want to start a channel? Is it?
That, I think, is the goal for a lot of kids, right?
Yeah,
A lot of youth is like, hey, if I can start a YouTube channel and make money through that, that would be amazing. Because a lot of the people that I follow on there are really inspiring.
It's like, it makes me think about a high school job way differently now. Like, going working at McDonald's or something versus, hey, Dad, or Mom, I'm going to start a YouTube channel.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting.
You know?
Like, yeah. So that was inspiring, but also like sort of eye-opening.
In what ways?
I wasn't expecting that to be like a big passion or like a focus of a project that we might start.
Video?
Just like, video with the expectation of like having and teaching this kid how to create a YouTube channel and have that be like a thing.
Yeah.
Right, like a skill.
Yeah.
So that conversation just led to, I mean, the third passion of his was percussion. So it's like production, YouTube stuff, and he's also a drummer. So we just smashed those together and came up with the idea of creating a YouTube channel called Modulated Drummer, where we ended up, the idea was to create weekly videos featuring drums put through a different effect pedal every video. So like the first video we did was, what do drums sound like when you run them through a distortion pedal in real time? What do they sound like when you run a live drum kit through a delay pedal, through a ring shifter?
When you mean in real time, you mean like what's his name?
Rico.
Rico is like hearing the drum kick through distortion for the first time live on camera?
Yeah.
Because there's like those reaction videos that are big now. Is it kind of in that vein?
It sort of turned into like a live performance where every drum is mic'd up, but also is being fed into a drum pedal, an effect pedal in real time. So he could be playing the drums and then also turning the dials on the effect pedal, and it changes the way the drums sound.
Oh, okay.
So,
but has he heard the prior to the cameras going live? Okay. See, those are the sweet spots. I feel like with YouTube, is like getting those real interactions, those real like life experiences, right? Like,
right.
you'll see these reaction videos that are just like some kid watching Neil Young play Heart of Gold for the first time.
I love them.
And it's like you're just so cool. It's so cool to watch somebody else going through that. Like,
it really
what is
works.
that?
It really just works. That's like, yeah, it's just a thing that people, I think, immediately are just like, yeah, I can relate to that in a big way.
Yeah.
Yeah, really interesting.
Super cool.
Yep. So that was fun,
Okay.
right? And that kind of ended up pushing me back into exploring the drums in a new kind of experimental way. COVID hit and was, that impacted the mentorship with Rico in a big way. And then I ended up just continuing with that a lot. Right?
Okay, so you're doing the channel now? You're doing the drums?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So still looking, still partnering and kind of providing mentorship or, like definitely making that an educational thing as much as possible. But COVID took, kind of really smashed that in a way that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's, that has had like trickle down creative impacts as well. Right. So beyond just creating the content for that channel, it has turned into oftentimes the drum tracks that I'll create for the weekly video will turn into the bones of a song.
Nice.
Right. So it's either they'll either turn into like a song, like a solo project song, like a Separate Spines idea, or I'll put them out there as isolated drum tracks and be like, hey, does anyone need
Like
a
a
drum
SoundCloud
track?
drop or something.
Anything, right? I can send people the stems if they just want like just the affected track. I can send those out, and people have been slowly engaging in that way as well and creating songs from scratch just based on those drum parts, which has been a great way to have some semblance of community in times of huge disconnect.
Sure.
So that's been awesome.
That idea of one project trickling down and giving creativity to a new project.
Yeah.
This podcast does that for me for songwriting, because I talk to people, and even just an hour conversation with a creative person, I'm like, I'd always take something from it.
Yeah.
It's not as direct as like your experience, I think, but conversation has led to a lot of creativity in my music.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to kind of mention or ask you about is like getting back to your original instrument, because when I am just playing guitar and just like running scales and like doing rudimentary stuff, but like back in my body almost with like the instrument, those are some of the most like healthiest periods of my life. Like sometimes when I'm not really even trying to like produce or create anything, it's just like I'm just like playing, and not worrying about capturing it and not worrying about promoting anything, but being with the instrument. That must have feel pretty good, right?
It does, yeah. I mean, having the YouTube channel is a bit different because there is that kind of anxiety of like, hey, I need to create a piece of content that I can post soon. And then the additional anxiety of like, wow, am I doing this right? Is it, is the lighting going to be okay? Like, are there going to be a ton of trolls like being like, you suck, right? Like your timing is like wretched or whatever. So there's all that.
Oh, the internet
can definitely.
So, okay, yeah, there's a lot in there I think it's worth unpacking.
Yeah.
Well, listening to people on the internet and like what they have to say about your playing, that's hard. Because I feel like no matter what, human beings, even if it's a troll, you're gonna take it pretty hard, right?
Yeah.
Like unless you get used to it or you just don't stop looking or whatever. Then the anxiety of, you mentioned producing something like weekly creates. I don't know. I feel like that can also add to it, right? Because you have like this limitation, this sandbox that you're kind of playing in, and it's a drum video.
Right.
It's got to go through an effect pedal. It's not like we were talking about earlier, where it's just a blank page.
Right.
There's structure here.
Right.
So yeah, can you talk more about that?
Yeah, the structure of the videos are interesting, right? So I got to the point where I tried to storyboard them, right? It's like the way that I sort of think about it is it's definitely both, right? Like it's a total improvisation, right? Where I don't know what to expect because it's like a new combination of things and I don't really map out the way that it's going to sound. I don't map out how long it's going to be.
You don't do the length?
Nope.
Really?
No, I'm just like, hey, let's create a piece of music from scratch. So
Yeah.
in that way, it's very much a blank canvas, right?
Uh-huh.
Like what's going to happen, I have no clue, right? But in the other sense, it's like, hey, I need to storyboard this and have an intro, right? I need to maybe share some fun facts.
Uh-huh.
I need to have the performance part that hopefully works.
Right.
And then I need to have some outro and like probably ask people to like and subscribe.
Right.
But like, I don't think I'm going to do that anymore. That just feels
Really?
too, I just don't like it. Yeah, I know. And like all the marketing people out
Well,
there,
why don't you like it? Does it feel salesman, used car salesman-y, or?
that feels too much like a template, right? Like a negative template.
Yeah.
That it's like, it just doesn't, yeah, I mean, it just doesn't feel like part of a creative process that I want to engage in, right? Like, yeah, I understand the dream is that people will like and subscribe if
Sure.
I say that, but it also just starts to feel like a broken record, right?
Yeah.
And like,
But if you did it every time,
right,
and it was consistent, and it was just like 10 seconds, I wouldn't mind.
you wouldn't mind.
I
as
wouldn't
a,
mind.
As a viewer.
YouTube watcher, yeah. Because
Right.
I see it.
I guess that's,
But-
yeah, maybe when I see that in
Or if you
YouTube
did it at
videos.
the end.
That too. Even still, I guess it's like my viewer preference where it's just like, man, I'm sick and tired of people telling me to like and subscribe, right?
Yeah, I get that.
Kind of like I'm sick and tired of people asking me to wave my arms in the air or whatever, like at a concert.
Oh,
who's
with the
that lyric?
lighter, with the slow song? Or like,
What's that? There's
Back
a
and
lyric.
forth?
There's some artist out there that's just like, that's one of her like pop, like huge hit record lyrics or whatever. Like I'm sick and tired of.
so you're the one guy with the hands down, not waving them.
I guess so. Maybe. I don't want it. Hey, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm kind of contrarian too. Do you have a little bit of like a defensiveness against like being told what to do, or?
I might. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I mean, you're doing your own thing.
Right.
It's very much, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. So that's a weird one for me, right? Like, I guess I also assume that if people like the content and want to engage with it more, they already know that that's something that they can do.
Yes, but there are also people out there who would like it that don't know about it too. Yet,
Right.
right? Reaching those people. I think the likes and the shares hit the algorithm. That monster just like,
Yeah.
it's a monster, and it will just show up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you see the YouTube feed. Like, do you have YouTube, the app,
No.
on your phone? Okay. Well, if whatever you search, it's gonna start giving you videos in that vein. But anyways, I like the idea of producing stuff weekly and staying consistent with that. I've tried to do that on this podcast and failed.
It's hard.
It's very hard.
Really, really hard.
For me, yeah, it is hard. How do you have? What's helped you?
A solid schedule, right? I mean, I've not been able to do that weekly, right? Just to make that clear, haven't been able to, but it's still the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, having a schedule really helped.
Yeah.
You know, picking 2 days per week to just dedicate to that was really helpful before a bunch of other stuff landed on my plate.
Yeah.
So, like, the way that I did it was Monday is going to be the day that I shoot, right? Create the content, do all the filming, and then Wednesday was, like, the day to edit, to post, to promote, and that ended up being pretty great, right? That ended up working.
Just 2 days solid. Just. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Because you get a night to sleep on it. Sometimes that night is like.
Yeah.
A little bit of sleep is crucial for creative projects.
You need that. Need some space.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the type of content for Modulated Drummer is also a bit challenging because other successful YouTube channels and personalities, I think maybe potentially have it easier, right? There are certain types of channels where it's way easier to create content regularly,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Well, you could just get a guy who's talking to the camera.
Right, or a screen share, right? Like I'm going to play a video game
Yeah.
and just like share my screen.
Yeah.
Um,
Another one of those weird like things that you didn't think people would be into but are way into.
Right.
Podcasts are like that too.
Yep.
It's like
Cool.
they are, because
Yeah.
you're like, I think it stems from loneliness, man, to be honest. Like when I'm lonely, I put on a podcast.
Yeah, interesting.
'Cause I want to hear other people talk.
Yeah.
And I was just talking to my friend about this. It's not like in the podcasts I listen to aren't educational or super informative. They're mostly conversational, and it's just nice to hear people talking sometimes.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially
So
now.
sorry to interrupt, but those little parts of technology where the humanity really, really comes through, I think is super valuable.
Right.
But you were saying about your channel and how other channels it's easy for them to make content.
Yeah, I paused with that for a minute, right? Being like, yo, is this the right kind of content that I want to be trying to share on like a weekly basis, right? And I'm still not 100% sure because it is a lot of work to do weekly, right? So I don't want to stop because it is fun, right?
Yeah.
Like going back to the original question is just like, man, it's so nice to just be able to engage with something like the drums in a new creative way. Helps process a lot of frustration. Like, to be totally honest, drums are a great way to kind of process and get rid of frustration or anger.
Nice.
And that's huge. There's a lot of stuff to be angry about right now.
This intersection of like creating content that also serves your life I'm really interested in too. I think music is, especially now, very much like that. Like, if you're a musician right now, chances are, you're obviously not playing shows. It's you're doing it because you love it, right? And it serves you and it fills you up. It enriches your life. Because sometimes I'll get caught up in it, and I'm like, I want people to hear this, or I want this to go somewhere. And then also I'm like, but I'm obsessed with it, and I just love doing it. So just chill out, Tyler, on like anything, coming from this, and just look at it for like what it does for your personal life.
Yep.
And share it, but like, what's more important,
Yeah. Great question.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good thing and super important thing to start asking ourselves, right? It's, I think, really dangerous emotionally to be a musician nowadays because of
dangerous.
What you mentioned a second ago, the algorithm. I don't know if we want to get super deep into that, but I think there's a lot of danger with that I'm hoping.
Let's get into it. What do you think is so dangerous?
Expectations, right? Kind of comparisons and a loss of purpose, right? Like why, again, just what you said, why are we doing this, right? Are we doing this because we want to? Or are we doing this because we feel like, because this like modern musician has been manipulated to think that looks like a certain thing, right? Like what have we been sort of taught to think a successful musician does and achieves, and like has to, like, in my mind, a modern musician has to do certain things online, right, to be considered sort of successful, right? We're very, very...
What are some of those things you think?
Sharing music online, having a certain amount of shares, having a certain amount of likes, having a certain amount of listens, right? All that stuff, have to be a YouTuber now, right? Like, I have to have multiple social media pages, right? And it's like, doesn't feel great if, only one person likes it. It doesn't feel great if no one shares it, right? And that is, I think, the vicious cycle that a lot of people that I talk to and that I definitely experience as well, is like, I have to keep doing this, right? Like, even though for the past 4 years, no one listens to the stuff that I put online,
Same
right?
here.
Like,
Yeah.
and I haven't learned that. So
Haven't learned what?
that it's not worth the time,
Yeah.
right? So what the heck is causing that, right? Like, how broken am I right now?
Wait.
And that's brutal. That's a brutal thing to say. Like, how broken am I to not have realized that this isn't worth the time, right? And that it's like really pulling me away from the things that I'm hoping music does to me in a positive way.
Okay. There's so much here.
Does that make sense?
I think so. I want to understand it more, though. So, what I'm hearing you say is, for the past 4 years, you've been releasing music that, wasn't super received by a large audience.
Yep.
But you still kept doing it. And so you're wondering about your own mental health in regards to, if nobody's checking this stuff out, why would I keep doing it?
Yep. Why haven't I changed the way that I'm approaching my relationship with music? Specifically,
What would be the healthier way?
just doing music because I want to.
Releasing it and sharing it?
It doesn't even have to be that, right? Like, it could just be, I'm going to play drums just to play drums today. I have zero other expectations.
Okay.
Period.
Well, that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier, of
Exactly.
just getting with your instrument, being with your instrument.
Right.
That's folk. That's folk. That's how people used to do it back in the day.
Definitely.
That's what
Right.
music was, right?
Right.
Like, it was just around the campfire on your porch at the end of the day.
Yep.
That's what music has always served, is that
Right.
it's
Yeah.
only in the last, 50, 60, 70 years has the music business even existed,
Right.
I think.
Right. And how many people do you know that engage with music in that way? Right.
In the folk way, I like to think I do. And I do know some people that do.
Awesome.
I
Yeah.
do, and I play with them, but not a lot, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, but at the core of people who even are on that algorithm lane of like sharing and trying to build and get listens, I do believe at the core of those people is that folk musician, right? It's there.
Yep. Could be.
It might be buried under
Right.
like, what's this gonna look like online, but it's there, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's the hope, right? And I guess the hope is also, is it the forefront, right? And
Yeah.
how much is the other aspect getting in the way of just being like, hey, I'm having a positive experience with music,
Yeah.
right?
Well, now it's now it's like meditation or prayer. It's like a different thing when you're just doing it to do it.
Yeah, it's a shift in perspective for me, for
Yeah.
sure. It's like, it became a concentrated choice, right? Where I had to like realize that there was something else happening and that my focus wasn't in the right area, right? I was just like, whoa, I'm not doing music for fun, right? I'm doing music for all these other reasons, right? And I didn't even notice. So
Was one of those reasons to express yourself, though? Because sometimes expressing yourself isn't fun. I guess that's my point.
right. Yeah, I mean, definitely.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
100%.
sometimes
Yeah,
you just said you get like frustration out on the drums, right? That's not like
right. Yeah, 100%. That absolutely exists. But yeah, so I guess when I say fun, it's not just, I don't mean just to like put a smile on my face, right? To like make a happy song. But for positive reasons is, I guess, maybe what I should have said,
Yeah.
right? Like, and that can mean a lot of different things.
yeah,
Right? Yeah.
yeah,
But I'm really just trying to remove a lot of like the social media aspects of what music, like how to engaging with music in that way.
yeah.
And-
How do you do it? What have you found?
I don't have an answer for that yet,
Mm-hmm.
but I think part of it is just being intentional about like, hey, I realize now that this avenue takes a ton of time and like shifts my focus, and
the avenue of the
social, the algorithm, right? Like engaging with that
takes
thing.
a ton of time.
Takes a ton of
and
time.
anxiety invoking.
Yeah, and for me, it's just had zero results, right? Just not worth it. So being really mindful of that and starting to have an internal conversation with, myself and with the community to be like, how else can this look?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is the alternative here? So, yeah.
Well, I think live shows fill that void a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then maybe we're just in this trip right now where we don't have that. And so we're feeling it more. We're feeling those algorithms more because we're all trying to have like live shows on Instagram. And like, it's just not cutting it. It's not cutting it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that feeling was there even before COVID hit, right? I think that was definitely there. But now I'm just like, okay, stop, right? Like, just it's time to just turn it off. And like going back to coming up with creative solutions for anything, right? Like, what is the creative solution there? Right?
Yeah.
So the only answer I have is just like, COVID is really causing and like inspiring people to want to have community in whatever way that looks like. And it's maybe, one simple solution is just going back to basics and building an actual community with people, right? Like not online, right? But I'm old school and I love calling people, right? I love carving out time to not text, but just to call an old friend and just check in, right? And I think personally it would feel a lot more rewarding to have that sort of interaction with people, even if it's like, hey, I only call 5 or 10 people and let them know that I've got some new music thing that I really want to share with them. That would feel way better than posting on some stupid social media site and hoping that one person clicks like, because, I mean, to be honest, the algorithm is not sending that music to the people that I wish would hear it.
Yeah.
They're not seeing it, right? Like maybe if I pay, but probably not even then, right?
Yeah.
So the idea of like rebuilding relationships with people that like music, right?
Yeah.
And what does that look like? I'm not sure yet, but
Yeah. Wow. So cool, man. I like that a lot. I've thought about that a lot. Because I kind of do that where when I release music, I don't have a big platform on social media, but I have people's phone numbers and all the emails of people who I know will listen to it. You know, I know that it might not be right away, but they'll genuinely say, my friend Tyler, he's my friend. I can know him, so I'll listen to it. It's not strangers that listen to my music. And I've thought about this because I thought about that this idea of like the only people that listen to your music are people who know you. Maybe.
Probably. I mean,
right?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's hard to know.
Potentially. I mean, for people at my position or whatnot. So what's wrong with that, first of all? And yeah, what if it was just like a local good? Like you traded around like almonds or walnuts that come 30 miles from here. It was like, oh, well, Buddy made a record. Why not listen to that? Because I live down the street from him.
Right. I love that. Yeah. That's, I would love if that
if
kind
we
of
keep our food
thing worked.
local, let's keep our art local, keep our music local.
It's really interesting to think about. Yeah.
But there's a lot of good music out there that you're like, you know what I mean? That's gotta, I don't know if that's realistic.
Right. I mean, that could grow, right? It could be the sort of thing where it's like, wow, I listened to Tyler's record, and then Tyler listened to someone else's record, and then Tyler called me and was just like, yo, you have to hear this record, right? That would be pretty cool, Right.
It'd have to be an identity, like a communal thing. Like, I am this type of person who's a part of this community, and I listen to music that is made here.
Yep.
And that's kind of like something I believe in, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It has to be that type of mentality, I think.
Right. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't know. What kind of community are you looking to build in person? I always think of church when I think about like
Mm-hmm.
a community of people coming together and kind of in their free time, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
and being with each other.
Yeah.
And I think that's very beneficial, and that's missing from our culture. So how do you do that in an atheist, modern context where everybody's gonna want to grab their phone anyways? Yeah, no phones at the door.
Yeah, I think you just have to find, I mean, just like your example, you have to find people that are interested in that sort of
Yeah.
thing and passionate about it.
Start small.
Yeah, and yeah, that's
Yeah.
a great way. Start small. I mean, yeah, I mean, I really don't know what the like end goal of this would look like, but the idea is there, right? The idea to think about it is there. And yeah, I'm excited about it.
That's great.
I mean, however it's going to turn out, I think regardless, disengaging from the things that aren't working is going to feel great,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So, yeah.
So I'm curious how you think, because it sounds like you're very reflective and intentional, and you have awareness about this isn't working, let's try something else. And then actually doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you just think about these things, or do you write them down? You talk to Rachel, like
Yeah, I mean,
what's your process for?
it's all of that,
Yeah.
thinking about stuff, talking with other people about it. Yeah, all those things. Yeah. I mean, I'm talking right now with really interesting new friend, Nikki. She has a thing called Nikki Sounds. And we were just kind of chatting about it. We did a virtual meeting, a Google Meet or whatever, and we're just talking about what's going on with the music right now. What are people experiencing? What are they feeling? And this idea popped up, right? We were just like, yo, let's just be honest about like, what we think others are going through and what we're going through. And this conversation kind of came up, and then the idea of trying to come up with solutions for this sort of thing popped up, and then the idea of like, let's carve out time to brainstorm on this idea, and then let's get a group of people together on a Google Meet and just like talk about this as a group. Came up.
Cool. Okay, so what people are going through right now, in as musicians. Can I tell you what I feel?
I would love that. Yeah.
So I felt a sense of relief when COVID hit, because the pressure to go play a live show or to be in a band or to do anything like in front of somebody else essentially was gone. And it was just like so nice. And that went, that's just me too. I can be kind of introverted, and I can live that life. And I understand that's not, most musicians probably are extroverted, I would say. Maybe not, I don't know. But so for me, it's been almost nice, this reprieve of like 8 months. I like another year, like I think I'd be okay with it. I talk to other people though, it's not the case. So I would be curious to know how more musicians are dealing with this. And I mean, I see it, I guess, online. I think there's a huge push online now for the live streams
stuff.
and whatnot.
Yep.
And
that's the pivot.
right,
That's the
such
pivot.
a weak pivot. It's such a weak pivot.
Yeah.
And I guess there's nothing better you can do. Maybe there is. Buddy thinks there is, though. You're a man looking for solutions, creative solutions. I like that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I kind of agree, but I'm also like, guilty of like following that pivot as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just because it's like the immediate solution, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it'll snowball into other ideas as well. I hope, right? Because, going back to like one of the early things that we were talking about, it will quickly become the template, right? And then people will start to question that and get frustrated by it, and then come up with like alternative solutions to like, okay, live stream, I get it. Now what else?
Right. You're so right.
Right. Yeah, it's fascinating to think about, like the positive aspects of this and how it probably created a lot of like relief for people,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or, a select part of our music community for sure, right? I think a lot of people are stoked on this. And that goes back again to, I think, our very first chat. That reminds me of the conversations that we had about the really bad impacts of venues, right? Like how that was just not, it was just kind of a broken thing that, also, was probably absolutely needed to be overhauled and like reimagined, right? In my mind, it was just like, there has to be an alternative to this because it's not great. Right? Like, and I think your reaction to like, hey, we can't play shows anymore, and that actually feels really good, is like really interesting commentary on that, right? Like, I'm not 100% sure what that stems from, but in my mind, my reaction is, very similar, right? Like, I'm stoked that I don't feel the pressure to have to go and play a crappy bar that's not going to be happy that I'm there, that's probably going to be empty, that is going to take financial, advantage of me, right? And I'm like not bummed to not go back to that.
Okay.
Right?
So this is getting positive. This is getting optimistic because if more people start feeling that way, because maybe we're wrong about the amount of people who feel relief. Maybe most people are like, yeah, at least at our level, right, or our position in this industry, are like, okay, fine, like I will stay home and write a record, you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
and double down on my craft,
Right.
and wait for something else, some other modality to take that place. Because what is really interesting too is that these venues are closing.
Yeah, shutting down.
That's weird. It's
Right.
interesting to think about. So when it does open back up, it's going to be a lot of bands that want to play, and probably high demand. Shows will start getting filled up quick, I bet.
Yeah, I think it'll go back to the template, right? The same kind
Oh,
of.
you think so?
Oh, I think it will. Yeah. I don't think anyone's really pushing
Maybe
the
it's just
venue
not
model.
optimistic.
I don't think anyone's pushing the venue model to change, right?
Yeah.
But
Well, you got to sell tickets. If you can't sell tickets, then what does the venue owe you? You know, I would argue that.
I would argue the venue owes you time for your craft, right? Your energy and your.
But what if you don't bring anybody?
Then there's zero income to go anywhere, right? But if you do bring people, then it feels weird to me to have the lion's share of any revenue generated at a show to go towards the house, right? With a lack of appreciation and financial contributions to the band for their time, right? I think that gets really heavy and falls into the idea of what is the value of money. I mean, what is the value of music?
Yeah.
Yeah, and what is the value of all the time that musicians put into their craft? Right now it's zero, right? It's nothing. Pennies if you're on Spotify.
Okay, so let me stop
we
you
don't
right
have
there.
Yeah, we don't have to go into that. that was interview number 1. We could.
Yeah.
cover
No, I
different-
find that fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways,
What about? God, I forgot what I was gonna say.
I have one quick comment too, maybe a little related, but not on the idea of like venues and stuff. It's Well, it's about the way that musicians are going online and the positive impacts of that, where they can now set up a tip thing and 100% of any money contributed that way goes right to the artist, right? So I think that that's a really exciting new development that COVID kind of caused.
Right. I know what I was going to say. In regards to the value of music, you need a healthy society to value art, right? You need like a functioning. We don't have that right now.
Interesting.
You need to have, because it's just essential workers right now, right? It's just plumbers and doctors, all these like essential tasks that have to be done. I mean, less so now as the states reopened or whatnot, but yeah, you can't have art. It's like on top of the functioning society, right? It exists on top. The healthier the society is, the healthier the culture is, then the more money the artists could make.
Interesting.
Do you think?
Yeah, great. Yeah. I think that's a really, good way to think about it. Yep.
Given that, and what we're potentially in store for in the next, the repercussions of whatever it is we're going to go through, hopefully it gets better. If it gets worse for artists, if people don't get their jobs back and this continues, it's going to be even harder to be an artist this time next year than it is right now, right? I'm just thinking out loud right now.
Yeah, me too.
So what yeah. Then you really gotta love playing drums. You really gotta love, you know what I mean? Maybe that's good for music, because maybe music is oversaturated right now with hacks, That's, maybe that's a harsh statement, but maybe it is. I don't know.
Yeah. What did I hear? I'm like hearing a really
See, comedians
crazy...
can say that, and jazz musicians too. It's a hack. That's jive. Comedians can say that's a hack, Yeah,
I think I heard a crazy stat. Like, I don't remember when, but it was something like every day on Spotify, there's maybe like 18,000 new songs that get uploaded to that site. I was just like...
Every day, 18,000.
Don't quote me on that, but it was something outrageous, like in that zone, where I was just like, whoa.
Yeah, what does that mean? Like, because of those 18,000, there's probably some great stuff in there.
Right, but how do you find it? How does that impact the value of music, right? How does that impact... Yeah, that's a tough one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The online marketplace is so competitive. And I like that you're kind of disengaging from that. Because you're like... And what I'm hearing is it's just too saturated, too competitive, and also anxiety provoking. And so I'm just gonna figure another way out,
Yeah, I've also been like kind of dumb in boycotting the value of music at this point too, and like, any song that I've been posting on like my Bandcamp page or whatever, which I also want to disengage from.
Why? I thought Bandcamp was going to be the last holdout. Like,
just it's just not direct to artists, right? Like, I'm shocked that there still isn't a really easy way to like have a website where funds can just go straight to the artist.
Patreon.
Yeah, Patreon, but they take 16%, right? 8%.
But they
goes
have
to Patreon.
They have to. They have. Right.
I would argue they don't.
Well, they have to. They're a business too.
But I would argue they're making a shitload of money for just having a site, right? And then...
They're providing a means. They're brokering a deal.
Yeah.
They're a broker. So
Yep.
In capitalism, you need brokers,
The thing that gets me is when, and this is going to sound brutal, when there's a group of tech bros making millions, and there's millions of artists that are making zip. So I can't subscribe to that, right? Like, and as a nonprofit, this is interesting too. Like, I started a Patreon page for MusicLandria, and asked for like a fee waiver because I know that how much they make, any given year just from fees. And I was like, oh, yeah, they could totally do this. And they were like, sorry, nope.
Yeah.
So I was just like, oh, okay, that's not great. But yeah, I mean, going back, I haven't been able to find an easy, simple solution to just have a pay link that doesn't make tech bros rich while musicians are making like zip, right?
Well,
like
Bandcamp was that like 10 years ago when it first started.
Right.
They might have took a cut, but it was very small.
Right.
When I used it 10 years ago, maybe. It was.
Yeah.
But now it's probably increased. I don't use it.
Yeah, it's probably somewhere it's still in the like 8 to 16% or something like that. But again, that goes to like another issue is the expectation is you put your music on there and it will help you generate sales, which it doesn't. Right? Like that is, I think, another lie that I sort of tie into the algorithm thing. Like it's something that we think is going to happen, that we've tricked ourselves into believing is true, but isn't. So what ends up happening is you end up as an artist marketing their site for them for no pay. They get paid. Other bands sign up because they see you're using it. They get paid even more. Maybe you sell some music on there, but Bandcamp is doing zero to promote your band.
Yeah.
And you're spending hours, who knows how many hours promoting their site, even though you're not intending to.
Yeah.
So I don't like that.
So, okay.
Right? And it's so funny. Every time we meet, I feel like I'm just like this like huge like boycott machine, which I really don't like identify as that. But I guess I just...
Well, if you have your reasons and you sound like you've thought these things through, I don't think there's anything wrong with not... And it's not like you're boycotting, you're just not doing it, right? Like
I'm just looking for an alternative, right? Like I'm looking for some sort of thing that doesn't take advantage of musicians and really is like genuinely interested in helping bands not be starving artists, right? Like, yeah, period, right?
Yeah, and tech is involved in our lives now. Like I think that's something that... maybe you're gonna struggle with if I feel like because it's always gonna be there, right?
Right. Yeah.
That algorithm is always gonna.
I have been struggling with
that statement about the having a little bit of resentment, and I can relate to a group of bros from Silicon Valley or whatnot taking the lion's share while other people just create content.
Yeah.
And give it to them.
Right.
That is going to create bitterness and resent in artists.
Yep.
No doubt. And you're not alone, I think, in that. Every artist must feel that. But tech is like such a giant part of content and music and like I don't know. Where's the solution in there? It's the community. It is. It has to be. It has to be back to the communal, the identity of, hey, I only drink coffee that's made down the street from my house.
Right. Yep.
It has to be. You have to ingest your art the same way you want to ingest local food.
Right. Yeah, you have to understand what your relationship is with tech. Is it serving you? If not, you need to be able to get to the point where you can disengage.
Okay. How do you know if it's serving you or not? How do you set up that criteria? Just maybe help other people too.
What do you mean?
So like you said, if tech's not serving you or not helping you out, disengage. For you, what are the qualitative standards you set up to know whether or not tech is serving you or not?
I haven't defined it. Sure. Really. It's more of a gut feeling.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, it's just I think we all know that.
Sorry to interrupt, but I think it'd be helpful for me if you were like, well, I know that this, and this, and therefore I don't engage with tech, because it's like this. It's subtle. It's a subtle thing, the tech, where you want to look or you want to check in on it, and it's like, no, this is not giving you this, and this, so stop.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating, right? I mean, that would be an interesting thing to potentially add to your list of reasons to continue to engage or not, right? Like, just the very fact that you potentially have that desire to spend your time checking to see if someone has engaged with it,
And I don't know why.
Yeah, instead of having a heartfelt conversation with somebody about your music.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how many hours do we spend engaging with online content stuff, hoping that other people are engaging instead of just engaging? Like, reimagining how that could work, and like just talking to someone, or like reaching out to someone that you know cares about music. That is maybe number one. Number two is just feeling like feeling like people have to engage. Number three is really starting to recognize that content will be hidden from people that will probably want to see this or hear some music that I potentially share. It's just being hidden, like, flat out, right? Like, and I can't change that, right? There's no way that I can change that unless I pay more money to boost a post, which feels pretty disgusting, right? And then there's still no guarantee that it's going to reach the people that I hope would see it, right? Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question or not, but it's just a feeling.
Yeah. No, that helps. I think the bigger picture is people disengaging with their phones altogether a little bit more. And like you said, having those conversations instead, or going out. And I mean, I don't know, man. People are doing that though too, right? Like, people are putting their phones away more. I think people are.
I don't know.
You don't know?
Yeah, I have no clue.
There's this phone that you can buy now that doesn't have any apps on it, and it just texts and makes phone calls. I think you would like it.
That sounds great.
Yeah, it's like essentially a flip phone. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wonder, like, what my life would be like if...
Oh, you'd be, or, well, I shouldn't speak for you, but I think for me, I would probably be way more spiritual and superstitious and mythological, and I believe that at the core we are those things, and we like don't engage with it because we're engaging with technology. We don't engage with the mystery of life anymore as much.
That sounds like you'd be living your best life, right?
Like when I go camping, you know, you're off the grid. We've all experienced that, and you're like, whoa, you're like looking at the sky, and you're like, whoa, this is cool.
Yeah.
And something happens serendipitously on the trip, and you're like, all right, kind of, it's a different.
Yeah. Have you seen The Social Dilemma yet?
I have.
Yeah.
I have. So, yeah.
That whole thing. Yep.
Yeah.
That's inspired.
Yeah.
That inspired the crap. That's super inspiring.
Yeah, it was brutal.
Brutal.
Yeah.
Yep. But in a, like, finally kind of way.
Uh-huh. So what did you take from it? This is a documentary on Netflix called The Social Experiment?
Social Dilemma.
Social Dilemma.
Yep. Anyone listening, check that out if you have Netflix. Really interesting. I fully support people watching that at least once, just to kind of be exposed to potentially new ideas. Yeah, it did a number on me.
Yeah.
But again, it was just kind of like a reminder of all the things that I had already felt, and helped kind of, you know, kick me into gear to take action on some of the like crappy aspects of being so tied to tech stuff.
So have you like deleted social media accounts since then, or just
I'm in the brainstorming phase.
keeping them
kind
of in the closet kind of thing, or
as a social entrepreneur, I have to really pause with that, take some like very, you know, move slow with that, because of like the business side of it, right? Like as a individual, like goodbye,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm out,
Right.
peace out.
As a musician?
Same.
Goodbye?
Oh man, more so
Okay.
than an individual. I'm like,
Okay.
goodbye. This has to change.
Okay.
Right. Like, but as a,
Okay.
all my
Interesting.
social media pages are connected to my individual accounts, and you can't separate them. So it's another like big punch in the butt by by social media sites that keep you on there. So I can't get off of those sites without destroying the business pages and making those gone. And that I want to have a really solid plan for what's going to fill that gap once it's gone.
Yeah. Do you think, because this is the one approach that I've taken, is where the one thing that I use the most is Instagram, and I don't keep the app on the phone, so every time I want to use the app, I just re-download it, which only takes 10 seconds, right? Yeah. So it's essentially on my phone, but it is an extra step that I've built in.
Yeah, great.
And then I also don't follow, or sorry for anybody who's listening, but I mute everything, like, and that is no way to be an insult to everybody. It's just for my own health, right?
Yep.
And so those two things have given me a little bit more of a healthier relationship with it.
Right.
And then scheduling it like, okay, I'm only going to do this on Monday or whatever.
See, that's so fascinating to like hear that, right? I think people know that, but like hearing it, I wonder how many other people would say the similar thing where it's just like, yo, my social media things are just muted, right? And then like, how does that impact the
your friends,
community, right? That is hoping that
that's
you will.
The thing. It's like, I don't want to do that,
I don't think anyone wants to do that, but we have to for our mental health, which is, talk about brutal. That's brutal, right? Like we have to mute the content that we probably want to engage with because it's just not working. Yeah. The entire like way that it's built is just wrong, right? Yeah. Like it's just not healthy. Yeah. So it's crazy. It's crazy to think about, right? Like I'm probably the same, I don't even know what to say. Yeah, just what we hope is a tool that's going to help us share content to the people that we hope will be positively impacted by it. Isn't happening because as a collective, a lot of us have to mute those things because it's making us mentally unhealthy. So it's just a big lie. It's just like a big, it's just a big trick. Right. It's a waste of time.
Right. And it keeps you from experiencing life.
Yep. Yeah. And worse, like, I mean, not worse. That's just, that's it. Yeah. Anyways,
Wow.
Heavy stuff, right?
Yeah. Important stuff.
So I'm glad we have a chance to talk about that because, I hope this, if someone listening hasn't been kind of thinking about that or has been feeling that but hasn't had a way to sort of put that into actionable, like an actionable timeline. Yeah. Or like think about it more seriously. Right. Maybe this will help with that.
Yeah. Just don't mute MusicLandria.
No, mute us. Definitely do mute us, but then hit me up offline. Call me, send me an email. I'm super still down to do things like virtual meetings. That has been huge right now for me. Yeah. Right? Like putting the word out there to people that come into the library, being like, yo, let's just set up, if you have any questions about music stuff, or questions about gear, or questions about how to be a musician in times of COVID, let's just set up let's just chat, right? Hit me up. And that has been awesome. That could potentially be one of the ways that we pivot out away from all the algorithm crap. Yeah. And it's already happening. Yeah. And maybe that's the solution, even though I don't know it yet.
Right. It's funny how solutions come. I think they kind of come in, feels like sometimes, Like, do you ever have this feeling where you know that the problem's been solved intuitively or at your gut, but you like don't like you can't articulate it, or you're not worried about it anymore?
Do you have an example?
Well, sometimes I've had like a life or death experience or something where like you thought maybe this was it. Like no, let me elaborate. But it wasn't, and you knew. It was one of the a time in your life where you're like, okay, this could be very serious, but I know that I'm not gonna die this way.
Have I had an experience like that? I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think everybody has, right? Like you're driving home with a friend and just had too much beer or whatever, and you're like, this is dangerous, but pretty sure I'm gonna survive.
Yeah, I'm.
Or maybe it's
I'm
just
drunk,
I've survived each time.
I'm
So.
drunk enough that I know I'm gonna be okay. I don't think I've ever had it. I've been in a car with
people. That's a bad example. Don't drink and drive.
Yeah,
I don't drink and drive. Don't drive with people who drink and drive.
That's so funny. Yeah, I don't think I've ever been intoxicated behind the wheel, but I've been in the car with other people that have been. And that was definitely,
I guess
pretty wild.
My point is, like, when you're trying to solve a creative problem that's big, like you are, don't you feel like some parts of it are just kind of solving as you, like, just wake up every day and it's like, oh, that's kind of solving itself. Oh, that's kind of not worrying me anymore. Oh, that's...
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
You're just pushing through it and, like...
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, for sure. All the time. Yeah. But that's because I, like, really embrace starting really lean, right? A lot of the projects that I start are experiments, right? Where I'm just like, hey, this is just an idea, and I don't know how this is going to pan out, but let's just do it immediately and like figure it out as we go.
That's how this started.
Yeah, I love that way,
and
right?
What I was going to say too about the sharing thing. Because for this podcast, pretty sure the only people who listen to it are the people that my guests tell to listen to it.
Word of mouth, yeah.
Right.
Is that what you mean? Like kind of a word
of mouth
thing?
Yeah. I mean, I think they, sometimes they'll put it on their social media. Most of the times they do. Who knows how many people listen to it through that? But I think that the people that they're like, hey, I had a conversation, I want you to hear it.
Yeah.
And they send those messages to. I think those are the ones who actually go and listen and stream it.
Yeah.
I assume.
Yeah, probably.
And that's how I wanted it to be, because like you, I don't have the energy nor the desire to like market or promote online very much. I mean, you've seen the Sacramento Musicology Instagram. It's literally I write down the name and like, so yeah, that's kind of been eye-opening to see that it's small, but it's organic in that. So I don't know.
Right, and that's cool, right? That almost seems like a natural kind of effortless thing, right?
And once again, back to that idea of it serving the guy who's doing it, me, in a way where I get to engage with people and have these like really cool conversations.
Right. Yeah, it's awesome.
It's awesome, like, and not only learning from that other person, but then also like learning about myself and like how I actually feel about some things. And so, yeah, I mean, I think I would have this conversation with you without these microphones any day of the week.
Right.
Yeah. Any day of the week.
Yeah.
But it's too easy to set up those mics and just pop it out there.
Right. Just hit record.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So before we end, let's talk a little bit about the new space here.
Okay.
Because it's very impressive.
Thank you.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Last time I went to MusicLandria was at your house.
Right.
And now we're in a different
space.
Yeah.
Yep. What do you want to know?
Well, let's talk about this room we're in, because it's a big recording studio, film studio.
Yeah, here we are.
You've got the drum set up in the middle.
Yep.
You've got it soundproofed. It's about, what is this, 30 by 20 by something?
think it's like, I think it's 20 something by 40.
It's a big room.
Pretty big room. Yeah, and this is
You could fit a 12-piece band in here.
Yes.
Which you did.
We did. Yeah, the first kind of stress test that we did in this space was a 12-piece kind of ensemble. Yeah, it was awesome. Socially distanced. That was great, right? Like we were able to fit that many people in here without it feeling dangerous, right, or irresponsible. That was that was great. The audio sounded phenomenal. The recordings sounded way better than I had hoped. They went off without a flaw.
That's an awesome band too.
Really great band, yeah. Shout out to Benoit and the BTU Arts band. They're connected with the Element Brass Band. And just great group of people. It was cool. Super fun. We just brought them in here. They practiced for a bit, and we're preparing for a live stream performance. And we just tested out the studio, and we tested out some camera stuff, and it was awesome. So yeah, this space, it's kind of going to be, it's a multi-purpose room, a venue once it's safe to do that, live stream studio, wah, wah. No, just kidding. No, I'm excited about the live stream studio. Like, yeah, that'll be fun. That'll be ready to go probably in the next couple weeks.
What if you just hired somebody to do all the social stuff? I mean,
interesting.
You know
question.
what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
somebody young who grew up with it and isn't as frustrated as us. I don't know how old you are, but I'm a 33. I'm an older millennial struggling with social media. Didn't have it in high school. There's kids out there that probably would love to do that. You know, like just blow it up. Just have at it.
That's what we're doing. Actually, we're engaging with the music community and being like, "Yo, does anyone out there want to take over our social media pages?"
Brilliant.
And just post whatever you want, right? Like, what are you stoked on? Share that, right? Do you want to share another local band and just get people to kind of check them out?
Yeah.
I see that as a double-edged sword. Yeah, it's great to be able to disconnect, but then I ask myself,
you're gonna be checking in. You're gonna be like, "What's he doing with my webs?
It's not that
with
even.
My brand." For
me, it's more like, do I want to have you exposed to that whole thing and get more?
Really?
Yeah, 100%.
The person.
I'm like, wow. Do I want to? Yeah.
You don't want to feed the
machine feed it anymore. I'm just like, yo, that's
so altruistic of you.
So that's been challenging.
That's
right?
going to be a challenge, man. If that's where you're at.
Why not pay that same person to help in an offline sort of way? Right? I mean, that's the flip of it. It's like...
Yeah. Anyways, this spot is great.
Thank you. Yeah. Any bands want to reach out to MusicLandria and use the space for either music video stuff, podcast stuff, come make a podcast here again.
Yes.
Practice space. We're really trying to offer that to local bands that need a place to just make some noise. And we're starting a radio station. So it's going to be 100% focused on Sacramento area bands, constantly playing local bands. So we hope that it'll create recognition by having these songs repeat, having people hear them more than once. We hope that will be a pivot and a way to have local bands be able to sell their music, right? The more familiar you are with a song, I think the more willing you might be to buy their music. So I'm really excited about that. Any bands that want to be on that radio station, hit me up, send me an email, maybe some links to your music, and we're going to start collecting and posting stuff on that radio station very soon.
Wow. That's huge.
That's huge, yeah. Yep.
Okay, buddy. Great talking to you.
You too. Right on.
All right.
That was a treat. Peace out.